You're listening to The Dealmaker's Edge with A.Y. Strauss, diving deep into stories behind commercial real estate leaders. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Dealmaker's Edge. Today, we're excited to be joined by Chad Lavender, who's the president of capital markets for North America at Newmark. Chad has more than 15 years of commercial real estate experience, particularly in healthcare and senior housing, a market which has recently made a lot of headlines for having its growth outperform other major real estate sectors for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Over his career, Chad has completed more than $50 billion in transactions across the U.S., beginning his journey in markets like Alabama and Dallas. Prior to joining Newmark, Chad worked in high-rise development at ARA, and shortly thereafter, he moved to lead the National Seniors Housing Group at HFF, which was Holliday Fenoglio Fowler, growing into the number one senior housing platform in the country before they were acquired by Newmark. And we're going to hear his story, and it's going to be a great episode. I hope you all enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dealmaker's Edge. It's the first episode we're recording in 2026. We have a very esteemed guest with us here, Chad Lavender, who's going to share his very exciting journey with us. And he's currently president of capital markets for North America at Newmark. And he's done over $50 billion of transactions. He's really just still at the early stages of his career, if I can say that. And he's done so much. And he really has his pulse on the industry. He's working at a fabulous firm. And we're excited to get to know him today and share his story with our listeners. So, Chad, thank you very much for making the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line is we're going to learn from you today. And I think a great way to inform where you are today is trying to tell the story of how you got here. I know it's incremental. It wasn't one overnight trip, but maybe you could just talk about your upbringing, where you grew up, go to school, and how you got started in the industry, and then we'll get the story going.
So I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. My mom worked at the University of Alabama for 35 years. My dad sold recreational real estate, so like timberland and that type thing. And my aunt was also kind of a mentor as well. She was actually the president and CFO of Turner, and my parents both came from tiny towns. My dad had one stoplight that's now gone, and my mom maybe had 3 that's now 2 in Alabama. So we lived in the big city of Tuscaloosa. That's where I grew up. Went to high school, played football, baseball, and basketball from 3rd grade to graduate in high school. So always doing something. Then went to the University of Alabama. Parents told me I wanted to go to maybe Vandy or UVA or maybe test the waters there. My parents said, sounds great, but the check's going to Alabama. So I said, Alabama sounds great. So started there, loved it. It's a great experience, learned a lot. They had a great real estate finance program. It's now a major, so it was a great kind of education. And I really felt like I was a step ahead because I knew the vernacular of real estate. I knew what a cap rate was and a lot of the easy things, but also was pretty focused on school, but more focused on campus politics. Was in a t-shirt business, so we sold t-shirts at J&J Apparel. We basically sold all the university fraternity and sororities t-shirts, which ended up being a great business. So that was kind of my first foray into sales, going in and trying to figure out how to get people to use us as their rep. So that was a lot of fun. Really learned that I wanted to be in the sales kind of transaction business. But my goal growing up in Tuscaloosa was to build high-rise office buildings all over the world for whatever reason. I'd really only been to Atlanta, so I don't know why that was my goal, but that seemed like a cool thing to do. So moved to Dallas, worked for Harwood International. We were building the highest rent building in Dallas, highest rent building in London, highest rent building at corner of Cannon and Wilshire in Beverly Hills. So kind of goal achieved out of the gate, but what I didn't understand or didn't see coming, I started my career January of '08, was the GFC coming fast and furiously at any development business or any real estate business. So went from figuring out how to get a new development built really to learning how to fight with lenders, wrestle tenants to the ground to get buildings leased, renegotiate everything, and try to get office building finalized with a lender bankruptcy and a condo building at one of the worst times in history. So it was a fun experience. Did that for a couple years. My goal was to get into the transaction business and, the development window wasn't opening anytime soon. There wasn't even a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel in 2010. And granted, Dallas was probably better off than most markets, and it still wasn't happening there. So I went and met with 62 different groups, which was a lot of fun. Like Bill Duvall, Harlan Crow, like a lot of legends met with me. And I'd say ignorance is bliss, that I just cold called these people, and they were kind enough to take the time to meet with me. And always led with, I know you're not hiring, but will you introduce me to 2 more people who would be beneficial for me to meet? So eventually I kept meeting people, and finally ARA, a guy named Brian O'Boyle, who led that market, was hiring a multifamily analyst and junior broker role, because that was the first thing coming out, kind of out of the ditch in the GFC. Multifamily was coming out pretty fast and furious, and there was actual transaction velocity there. So he took a chance on me, which was awesome. We were pretty successful out of the gate. My goal was to be a broker quickly. So he said, that's great, but I need 8 hours a day out of a minimum out of you as an analyst. So I'd work from 5 to 8 a.m. as an analyst, 8 to 5 as a broker, and then from 5 p.m. to wherever as a analyst again. So got kind of a crash course in real estate. I was calling on Class C multi-assets that weren't a lot of fun to tour, but I really learned how to call people, meet people, all those type things, which was invaluable, and had a great mentor in Brian O'Boyle and Brian Murphy and Brian O'Boyle Jr. So that was a lot of fun. And I realized I was going to be a low man on the totem pole for a while, and the senior housing sector was outperforming any other asset class in the country at that point. So my partner today, Ryan Maconachy, had just started a senior housing platform at ARA. He said, let's go try to do this. So we started trying to sell senior housing assets, and the answer for most clients was not to sell, it was to refinance. Because we could see values getting better, we could see NOIs growing, we could see cap rates compressing in the future. So after 2 years of telling people to refinance, that's not a very good business plan when you're all commission, at least to make money. It was our whole goal and our whole motto has always been clients' interest ahead of our own. So we want to be honest with them and really play the long game and telling them what was best for them and their asset and their investment to kind of maximize value. So we went and pitched HFF to start a healthcare business within HFF and do senior housing, medical office, debt equity, and sales. And that went really well. So we kind of fixed the debt piece there, really learned the equity business. And our goal was to double our business every year. And we did that from 2012 to 2019. We doubled our business every year, both from a sales volume, debt volume, and revenue perspective. And we had a ton of fun doing it. And then COVID hit. So we had to get creative on how to get deals done, and did a lot of direct deals and kind of maintained our number one market share in the business for the past 10, 12 years. And we've kind of built on that. And, we went through COVID, kind of muddled through it. And now we're on the other side of it, and we're back to kind of record transaction volume. I think we did over $5 billion in sales and $3 billion in debt this past year. And we should do that, more than that, the first half of this coming year.
Incredible. That doubling philosophy never seems to stop with you. But I think that's fabulous as an overview. And I want to just go back to a couple key points that you just sort of casually mentioned. One is, you took the darkest financial crisis of our collective lifetimes and you turned it into an opportunity. You could have just curled up into a ball and said the world is over, but you kept moving. And I think that's what successful people do. They don't care what's happening. They can't control markets, but they can control their own energy and activity. And the idea of networking at all times, in good markets and bad, speaking to busy people without pressuring them for a job, saying, do you have time to meet? That guy Chad was nice. I liked him. I'm going to help him, introduce him to 2 people without needing anything other than a meeting. That's the way to set yourself up for collective success. And then also, you casually mentioned that you casually mentioned that you were working as an analyst and a broker. I think most people would say, I'm happy to have a job, need an analyst. I'll be an analyst for 4 or 5 years, then I'll lift my head up and then I'll see what brokerage is about. But you said, to hell with it. And that doubling mentality, just it comes from somewhere. And we're going to try to talk about where it comes from. And then also, you were also seeing around the corner in a very prescient way beyond somebody who's pretty junior, graduated from college. I think people only with years and years of retrospect, they look back and say, oh, the multifamily was picking up. But you had this confidence from a very young age after graduation to say, like, this is where it's going, and not being afraid to leap ahead. And I know you're smiling because you don't want to take all the credit, but just to put it back out there, it's not very simplistic.
It was
Yeah.
more fear.
Yeah.
To start my illustrious real estate career from profits from the t-shirt company, I bought a condo in Dallas. So
Yeah.
my first investment was a terrible one, although, with time, any investment is good if you give it long enough. So I had a mortgage to pay. I had a chip on my shoulder because I was from a small town, didn't go to some Ivy League school, and wanted to prove myself. And, my parents certainly didn't like that I was going to a full commission job from a very stable salary and bonus job, because it's just different from what, they came from. So it was definitely a risk, but you got to look at everything risk adjusted. And the time to fail is when you're young, because your downside's just not really that large. And you kind of have this confidence that you can kind of do anything because you don't know how hard that is after seeing it. So, we were so ignorantly blissful that we could go dominate and take over an industry quickly that we just put our heads down, did it, went around, traveled, every week, met everyone, had a lot of fun doing it, tried to work harder than anyone else and give honest, clear advice that was to our clients' benefit, not ours.
No, 100%. And just navigating through those markets. And it seems like really every 2 years, you can literally track your resume, and it really factors to that doubling, because you don't continue to get those promotions by sitting on your laurels and just coasting from last year's revenue. I'm sure, like everybody else I know, in early January, you have your pipeline, but you're like, we got to do that all over again. And you got a big team. So maybe you could talk about how you've maintained that intensity as your career has ratcheted up. You've got, a big, broad team you're part of. It's a big company you're part of. So you're entrepreneurial on one end, but at the same time, you have to navigate a lot of nuances at a large organization. So maybe you could talk about just career journey broadly, all that discipline that brought you to where you are present day.
I think given saying that I have discipline is probably too creditful. I think it's hard work. It just really put your head down and pushing through any obstacle and not being scared to fail, like just going all in and having fun doing it. I mean, picking great partners and great people to work with, make it fun, even in the challenging times. So we had a lot of fun, even though it was hard. On the Newmark side, it's the most fun, we've ever had. We're building a great business. Our kind of motto is, if you're great, you should be here. We believe we've assembled the best talent in the business. We want to keep more white space for our brokers and advisors to go do more deals and not be overcrowded. So we're still small from a brokerage count perspective, but large from a transaction volume perspective. So our goal is to have the highest revenue per advisor, so you get better quality advisory to our clients, and they know if they're hiring Newmark anywhere, we got the best person in any seat in the country.
It's a lot of responsibility. And how many people are reporting to on a regular basis? How do you manage just team infrastructure? It's probably really fun.
I mean, I really view it as me reporting to them. I think our whole leadership takes a servant leader mentality, where we report to the advisors and try to help them achieve all their goals and then some, whether it's helping them with, on a pitch or introductions, to bringing over talent that's complementary across the country to build our platform across the globe. So I think we really view it as not who works for us, but how many people do we work for and how much we can help move the needle for them.
I think that was articulated beautifully. And I think that's the ultimate truth. If you're leading, you're working for other people. It's just the way it is. and I report to several people as well from that topic. But it's all good. It's all good. It makes it fun and interesting. People make life interesting. But just maybe you could talk about day to day, you more of your role, right? Because you're kind of sitting in a management seat. You've got clients and team members calling you all day. I'm sure you've got a ton of travel. If you can just sort of mark your role as far as like, I spend this amount of my time and energy on this type of project versus this type of project, firm-wide initiatives. I'd love to get a flavor for our listeners, like what it looks like from your seat day to day.
I'd say my day to day is never the same, and I don't have an allocation of time per day. Sometimes there's a bunch of fires, that we have to put out, things that are pressing, or either they're just, revenue things that we need to go help people win on the pitch front. A lot of days I'm spending a lot of time in the trenches on the senior housing brokerage team with my partners there. And then, certainly I'm on the road most weeks, recruiting, meeting with clients, trying to help our clients achieve their objectives, and all our advisors as well in our respective offices kind of help them achieve their goals and really provide them the tools to be successful.
Have you had any leadership training, any mentorship guidance? I know you've talked to tons of people and you're a big organization, but I think sometimes people are natural born leaders. And I think even the natural born leaders need augmentation and they need people to go to and turn to. Have you been able to build like an inner roster of people you can talk to for your day-to-day
Yeah, I
conundrums?
mean, I have several mentors that I lean on pretty heavily. Certainly at big kind of career decisions and or like inflection points for how we should make a decision. I've had 3 or 4 mentors that I talk to on I'd say sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, and it's mutual. They're older than me, so they're calling asking what I do about this, next generation problem as well. So it's been a lot of fun, and try to learn from the mistakes that others have already made, so I don't have to make them. Just like we teach our kids, like, I'm telling you to do this because I've already made that mistake, not just because I'm telling you what to do. Sometimes I listen like my kids, and sometimes I have to make the same mistake that someone's told me not to make, but I try not to.
Yeah, it's pretty alarming if somebody older than you is asking you for advice, though, as far as like in a leadership capacity, because you're looking at them and you're thinking, I thought you knew what was going on over here. Yeah. But it's all good. It's healthy that way. You want to have different generational input from across so many voices.
Curious people too. They always want to learn more and learn. It may not just be me. They want to learn how Newmark is doing something
Sure.
and how we're kind of approaching an issue or have approached something. So I'd say curious leaders and people are always learning, asking as many questions as they can to try to gain knowledge. So they don't have to make a mistake or can make a better informed decision that'll have a force multiplier effect on, their business.
1,000%. Maybe we talk a little bit about the mental headspace you have to be in to do what you do daily, to have gotten to where you've gotten, to have had the success you've had over the years. I know you're always driving forward. You're never stopping. Yesterday's performance is almost irrelevant. It's just something you look back casually and you're always focused on the future. What's next? Grow, grow, grow. But I mean, you've ridden some real markets here. You've navigated COVID. You've grown with a fabulous, successful organization. There's always ups and there's downs, and it's never linear. But I think a lot of people listen to this podcast maybe in the earlier stages of their career. So, maybe someone's at year 3 or year 5 or year 2. Should they push through? How do they navigate cycles, the ups and downs? What are your sort of your themes that you use internally to keep the motor running and all the pieces moving together? I'm sure you have days that are better than others, but just collectively would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I have a great wife that I think keeps me leveled off most of the time. But it's control what you control. You can control your attitude, your effort, your energy. Like those are 3 things that you can control, and those will ultimately lead to success no matter what the market is. And always having your clients' interest ahead of your own, trying to think for them and give them ideas of what would be beneficial to their business. Because a lot of times we're seeing around the corners before they do, just of emerging capital, emerging investment opportunities, just lots of ways that we could monetize assets in their business at a favorable mark that they may not see yet, because we have at the market intelligence, daily. When comps come out and have closed, they're irrelevant in a market that's moving this fast. So it's trying to share our knowledge from an advisory perspective with as many of our clients as we can so they can make the best at the market decisions with all our knowledge for their business.
And where do you think we are today market-wise? I mean, I think you have a very unique perspective because where you sit, it's a huge firm, et cetera. I mean, I know talking to a lot of people in the industry, the second half of 25 was almost dramatically different than the first half in many ways. And it seems like there's a lot of momentum going into 26. But what's exciting for you where you see things, and what's exciting for the clients?
Yeah,
And I guess, what are you sharing with them when you're bringing market intelligence?
it's a little different per what the client's focus is and what their objectives are. But I'd say the data center business, we continue to say is a modern day gold rush. And in commercial real estate, we're the number one data center advisor. So that's been a lot of fun with almost 70% market share. So that's been fun to kind of be at the tip of the spear on
Sure.
those capitalizations across the country and globe. The senior housing sector is as hot as we've ever seen it. You have negative supply growth, 6% rent growth, favorable demographics, and kind of an entry point that's harder than most asset classes because your operators matter so much. So it's almost operator location. The student housing business has a ton of momentum. We expect to see the multifamily business rebound the second half of the year. We're starting to see green shoots now, and really as supply wanes, we're seeing rent growth start to pop back up. We're seeing it in the Bay Area. We're seeing it in places that had the Midwest, places that had lower supply growth, and we expect that to play out in the Sun Belt. We're starting to see a lot of people are office curious, and I'd say they're office serious. They're trying to go buy office. Institutional bidder pools have doubled. We're seeing the blue chip groups see office bottom this summer and really starting to buy into this upswing as we see leasing velocity improve across the country. Industrial, we're seeing a crazy appetite from a buyer perspective. In some market, there's still a bid-ask gap between where people want to buy and sell. Storage, we're seeing increased interest. Manufactured housing, tons of interest. Retail is off the charts from a performance perspective, and institutional capital interest. So really, it's a lot of different asset
Yeah,
classes, a lot going on, and every deal is a snowflake. So they're different when you drop that asset in a different location across the country and the
sure.
quality of that asset across the country. Ton of
Which
interest
is
on the
great to
affordable
see.
housing side too. So
Yeah,
all across
definitely.
the board.
It's exciting to see from 23 till 26 what happened. I think people are
Yeah,
saying survive till
been
25.
fun.
Maybe they meant 26. And at any given day, we get new healthy transactions and you're trying to solve for some historical issues. But it seems like the momentum's here and you're perfectly equipped to ride the next wave with your background and firm behind you and all the energy you bring. Anything else I could have asked you, but I didn't? I'm sure people are trying to get in your calendar for coffee. Chad, let's meet. I want to get advice from you. And you're sitting with that proverbial, advice, session for 30 minutes in between all your meetings. What are kind of the things you're telling some of the younger recruits on your team or people that are pitching to you to get on your calendar?
Be forever curious, read as much as you can, have a great attitude, great energy, work with relentless effort, and you're going to be successful. I think it's finding trying to figure out where your talents match your talents with opportunity. So is the advisory business the right business? Is the principal side, the developer side? I think everyone's different and everyone has really differentiated talent, but I think it's trying to find the place to maximize your own talent, but you can't replace the hard work, the effort, the energy. That's something that's undefeated in business. So you got to work harder than anyone if you want to get ahead.
Well said, Chad. And I think we'll wrap here. I really appreciate the time. It's going to be exciting to watch 26 from your perspective and see what's happening. I know you already got a big pipeline and you got a fabulous team and firm behind you. I'm glad our listeners got to hear about your journey and story, and they'll be following you further. And I guess we'll wrap it here, my friend, but wishing
Thank
you
you
the
for
best
time.
success in 26 and beyond.
Absolutely. And likewise, it's going to be a fun year. We're fired up.
Awesome. To be continued, my friend.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for joining the Dealmaker's Edge. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. And please give us a 5-star rating so more people can follow the conversation.